He's a senior lecturer. It's a faculty of law, University of Colombo. He's going to speak on labor law, which is very important for the investors. This is Mr. A. Sarveswaran. Mr. Sarveswaran, the stage is yours.
Much for the invitation. You all can hear me?
Yes, and see your beautiful face too.
All right, thanks a lot. Right. Actually, before I go to labor law, just I want to make a very quick response to the question that has been asked by Mr. Mendes. Actually, as Costa rightly pointed out, anyone can buy a land in the northern part, but when it comes to those limitations under the preemption ordinance, those limitations apply not only to the Sinhalese, even to the Tamils from the north also. For example, if I am going to buy a land in Jaffna, so the same limitations will apply to me also, even though I am from the northern part of Sri Lanka. So the same limitations apply to all, even to the Tamils from the north. Okay, now I come back to my subject, that is labor law. Right? So I would like to, respond to your questions, very much. But I will give a very brief introduction about the labor law of Sri Lanka. But I am very sorry to say that you may get a very negative picture of Sri Lanka once you listen to my short presentation. But I will start with a very simple example. We will say now I have a coconut estate in Pale in the northern part of Sri Lanka. When it comes to the coconut estate, there is a factory also in the estate. The factory has an office, and also there is a shop attached to the coconut estate. So basically, right, the coconut estate is in Jaffna, and the coconut estate has a factory also. There is a factory also. The factory has an office, and also there is a shop. So basically, when it comes to the Sri Lankan labor legislation, I want to explain the complicated nature of the Sri Lankan labor laws. So when it comes to this situation, right, so there are 4 categories of workers. The number one, the workers who work in the factory. The other one is the workers who work in the office of the factory. The third one, the workers who work in the shop. Fourth one, the workers who work in the coconut estate. When it comes to these 4 categories of workers, all work in the same place in my business. But when it comes to the workers who work in the factory, they come under the wages board's ordinance when it comes to their terms and conditions of employment. Their working hours, overtime payment, their leave entitlements, and the intervals, right? All, even the minimum wages, all are determined by the wages boards. But again, when it comes to the factory workers, there may be different category of factory workers within the factory. Then they may come under different wages boards, and then the different wages boards may make different decisions. So within a factory, we may have different category of workers who come under different decisions of the different wages boards. Then when it comes to the workers in the office of the factory, there is a special legislation called Shop and Office Employees Act. So their working hours, overtime payment, and all come under the leave entitlements and all come under the Shop and Office Employees Act. When it comes to the workers in the shop, they also come under the Shop and Office Employees Act. When it comes to the workers in the coconut estate, they come under a different category. Right? If there's a wages board, they will come under that. Otherwise, they will come under different arrangements between the employer and the employees. So when it comes, we will go for another example. When it comes to a female worker who works in the factory, then her maternity leave comes under the maternity benefits ordinance. There it says 12 weeks should be given. When it comes to a female worker who works in the office of the factory, she comes under the Shop and Office Employees Act, different legislation. Then there 84 working days should be given. So now you have got the picture of the Sri Lankan labor law. So why do we need all these different categories and different laws? Why can't we go for a single law applicable to all workers? But there was an attempt about 2 years ago to bring a single law and make it applicable to all. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, I think there are many amendments to the labor legislation are pending. But unfortunately, the government gets changed, the minister gets changed, the secretaries get changed, then all reports go to the shelf. Finally, nothing happens. So it's a very complicated nature of the subject. When it comes to Sri Lankan labor law, there the state intervention is there. Therefore, the state has enacted, basically the legislature has enacted many labor legislation. Basically, when it comes to the terms and conditions of employment in Sri Lanka, governed by the statutes enacted by the legislature, parliament. When it comes to a contract of employment, right? So, according to the Sri Lankan laws, right, the labor courts are not bound by the terms of the contract of employment. So, for example, now in the letter of appointment or the contract of employment, so there is a clause which says either party can terminate the contract by giving 1 month notice or 3 months notice or 3 months salary in lieu of the notice. But if the employee is a permanent employee, you can't give that notice and terminate his employment. So he can go to a labor court, the labor tribunal. The labor tribunal is not bound by the contract of employment, even though it is in written form, even though it has been signed by both parties. So the labor court or even the labor commissioner can make a decision without ignoring the contract of employment, which is in written form. And also there are some emerging issues. Now when it comes to the work arrangements also, sometimes it is very difficult to decide whether the person is a self-employed person or an employee, because that is a very important question to decide whether the labor laws will apply to the relationship, right? So that is another emerging issue. And also when it comes to the Sri Lankan work arrangements, again, when it comes to the employers, they have very heavy burdens, because when it comes to, the employees will have to pay all the retirement benefits to the employees. So we have the employees provident fund, so the contribution by the employer. Again, employees trust fund, retirement benefits, the employee. When it comes to workplace accidents and all, the employee will have to contribute. And also when it comes to maternity leave, now under the Sri Lankan labor laws, right now for any number of children, the female employee is entitled to maternity leave for 84 working days. But when it comes to an employer, right, if an employer employs a female worker, then he will have to give the 84 working days. When we add all the holidays, it will go more than 100 days. The employer will have to pay from his money. But we don't have the social security scheme from which the government will pay during that period. So the employer will have to pay. So the employers are discouraged to employ. But when it comes to small scale business places, they are very reluctant to employ the young married girls, because the burden is on the employer. So when it comes to recruitment, so they can decide, because there are gaps also in our labor law, because when it comes to recruitment, say if I have a private company or a pharmacy, will say I have a pharmacy, so I can have a policy to recruit only the males or unmarried young girls or married girls above the age of 50. So no one can do anything if it comes under the private sector. So that type of discrimination also takes place, right? So the other one is the lack of flexibility, right? When it comes to work arrangements, working hours, and all very rigid. The laws are very rigid. The other one is termination also. Termination of employment, very, very difficult, right? So, right, you can't simply terminate an employee. Right? For an example, you have invested, but now you find now the business is running in loss, or you want to reduce the workers, or you have imported the machinery, so you want to reduce, but that you can't do simply. You have to get the written consent of the workers. You have to pay a big amount as compensation. Otherwise, you have to go to the commissioner for the approval. When you go to the commissioner, the approval will not be given on the very next day, right? So therefore, you have to wait until the approval is given by the commissioner, but there is uncertainty whether the employee will give the consent for the termination or not. Still, you will have to pay compensation. When it comes to the minimum wages, actually there is a question, right? So we have the National Minimum Wages of Workers Act enacted in 2016. Right now, that is a very, very low amount, because now it says a month 10,000 rupees in a month, or when it comes to daily wages 400 rupees. That is the National Minimum Wages of Workers Act. But for those wages, actually you can't find an employee to work in any place. But anyway, very soon it is going to be amended. The national minimum wages will be increased. But now as it is, now it is 10,000 rupees. And also one other last point, when it comes to labor cases, again, the law delays. So once a case has been filed, right, so it will take years and years. So that is another issue. Finally, when it comes to investment in Sri Lanka, whether the investors are foreign investors, right, whether the companies are foreign companies, but as long as the investments are in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan labor laws will apply. Thank you.
Wow, I think everybody is shaking their head. No, it's not a negative view on Sri Lanka after your talk, as you mentioned, but I think we are so proud that we have so much laws on the safeguard of the workers, but I think the investors have to go through and understand properly before employing the workers. My 2 cents here, quick question. Do they have a paternity law like some of the Western countries? The maternity law. So do they have a paternity law in Sri Lanka? So somebody get married and they won't get a job because he's going to get a paternity law. We can't hear you.
Paternity law.
Sorry?
Yeah. When it comes to, can you hear now?
Yes. Paternity leave. What I mean was paternity leave, like maternity leave.
Yes. So when it comes to paternity leave, again, we have different arrangements. When it comes to the people who are in the military service, they get about 14 days. Right? Those who are in the military service. 14 days, 1-4.
2 weeks.
1-4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
14 days, 1-4. When it comes to the employees in the public sector, they get 3 days. 3 days. The government sector, 3 days. But when it comes to the employees in the private sector, nothing. Okay. So it is not in the labor legislation applicable to the employees in the private sector. But workplaces, the letter of appointment, they mention the days and they are giving. But otherwise, the trade unions will have to go for collective agreements with the employer and include the clauses related to paternity leave. But as it is now, when it comes to the private sector, there's no provision for paternity leave.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sarveswaran, for bringing up a real bird's eye view of the labor laws in Sri Lanka. That was very useful.